Tonight on Mississippi Insight, the countdown to Election Day. On Tuesday, voters will choose the state's next governor. We have an all-star panel to break down that and the other key races. And the two men running for Secretary of State. We're talking with Michael Watson and Johnny Dupree. Hello and welcome to Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown. Thank you for joining us. Election Day is just 3 days from now, and it's anyone's guess who will win the biggest race on the ballot, Mississippi governor. We've assembled a panel to talk about this and the other big races. Joining us now is former Republican Congressman Gregg Harper and Representative of Mississippi's 94th District Democrat House member Robert Johnson. He's unopposed in next week's election. Let's get right down to the races here for governor. Two polls, Mason-Dixon and NBC News, show that Tate Reeves with a slim lead. Jim Hood says his internal polling shows him with a lead himself. Now, with both races here, we're looking at this. Give us your thoughts on the race and these polls. We'll start you with Mr. Johnson. What do you see about the race? Where do we stand as far as where this thing looks right now?
Well, I think we have to take both polls seriously and understand that this is a very close race. And it's a close race because we're in a very pivotal time in the state of Mississippi, and we need leadership that's going to make a change in the state of Mississippi. When you look at national rankings, where we rank 46th in education and 45th in infrastructure and 50th in healthcare, and then 44th in opportunity. For the last 16 years, we've had the same leadership in the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. And so I think the people of Mississippi have to make a decision about whether or not they want to maintain the status quo, they want to see some change. And what Jim Hood represents is a person who, as Attorney General, has been very productive, has focused on the issues, which is how he's campaigning and running. He doesn't talk about national politics. He talks about the things that will affect the people here in the state of Mississippi. And I think those polls reflect that the people of Mississippi are responding to that.
Mr. Harper, what do you think about the polls? I mean, they show a slim lead there.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's an honor to be on here with you and Representative Johnson. And I only wish that I could have been unopposed even once, so I commend him on that. But I think an interesting thing that he said, first of all, the polls, are always, it's much harder and much more difficult to do polling now. So I think that it's pretty clear that Tate Reeves does have a lead in the polling that's being done now. But one thing he said is that Jim Hood doesn't mention anything about the national party, national politics. So it's because he can't. He has to run from the National Democratic Party because of what they're representing and what they're doing and those things. That gives an advantage to Tate Reeves at the polls on Tuesday. And at this point in time, I think it's pretty clear that Mississippi's very pleased with his leadership over the years, whether it was as treasurer or as his job that he's done in lieutenant governor. And the policies, I think, have been strong and good for Mississippi. And as a friend, I can tell you I've had a great working relationship with Lieutenant Governor Reeves, and I look forward to having that same relationship when he's governor.
The president was here on Friday, the vice president's on Monday. He has these big guns coming to support him. How is that helping getting out the vote, and how important is that for the lieutenant governor?
I think it's very important because, there's no question that President Trump is very strong in Mississippi. I'd submit he's stronger today than he was when he got elected in 2016. His presence, his support for Tate Reeves, I think matters a lot, as does Mike Pence, who's very popular as well. And one that's beyond reproach. And I think that and Sonny Perdue coming in, it shows that from the national level, it means a lot. And you have to ask, who's coming in on the national level on the Democratic side to support Jim Hood? And I haven't seen him yet.
Yeah. Mr. Johnson, does the president's presence and the vice president's presence, does it help Mr. Reeves or does it help Jim Hood with all the impeachment?
It helps Jim Hood. Lieutenant Governor Reeves has the Trump support that he's going to get. He's run his campaign with Trump's name all over his ass the whole time he's run. I don't think President Trump coming here, Vice President Pence coming here, enhances that at all. I think he has very strong, Representative Harper is right. President Trump is as strong in Mississippi as he's ever been. But I don't think that him coming adds anything. But I do think it fuels the people who want to vote for Jim Hood and the people who support Jim Hood, in as much as people always ignore that there is a strong negative for President Trump, and in the Democratic Party and in places in Mississippi where people are being affected by the economy, affected by infrastructure, hospitals closing, health care, all the issues that Jim Hood is focused on. Jim Hood is not running away from national politics. He's focusing on the issues that affect Mississippians here today. And you look at what he's done as Attorney General, I can tell you, as a representative, there have been times that our budgets would not have been what they were without the money that Jim Hood has recouped for the state of Mississippi. He has been about production. Tate Reeves has been about political messaging and affiliation. Let's talk about what it means to be not Democrat or Republican, what it means to be a Mississippian, and who can do the best and change things here in this state. And I think Jim Hood is that candidate.
What is going to determine this race? Is it going to be the Bill Waller votes, or what's going to change this race or determine who wins this race? When it comes to Tuesday?
Certainly Chief Justice Waller was very strong in the Jackson metro area and in some other areas in the state. And I believe at the end of the day, those voters were Republican voters who will vote for Tate Reeves. Maybe they didn't. Maybe he wasn't their favorite when Waller was on the ballot. But at the end of the day, they can't run from the national party and national politics. And when he says he's not running away from those, but he's running as a pro-life Democrat, well, he has no home on pro-life issues in the National Democratic Party. It's just it's a reality, and that's a very important issue to Mississippi.
All right, well, we're going to be right back and continue our conversation about what's going on here in Mississippi and the race on Tuesday. We'll be right back and continue our conversation after this. And welcome back. We are talking elections with former Republican Congressman Gregg Harper and Democratic State Representative Robert Johnson. Welcome back. We are talking elections with former Republican Congressman Gregg Harper and Democratic State Representative Robert Johnson. Let's talk a little bit more about the president's visit to Mississippi and the impeachment inquiry. And welcome back. We are talking impact or not have an impact on voter turnout and how Mississippians will vote on Tuesday. We'll start with you, Mr. Johnson.
Well, again, I acknowledge the fact that President Trump is strong here in the state of Mississippi. I think that people who support President Trump and believe in President Trump are upset and disturbed by the impeachment proceedings. But on the other hand, as the Republican primary proved, Mississippians are split about what they feel. Even conservative Mississippians are split about what they feel about certain issues. And I think there are a great number of people that want to see justice done. They don't think anybody's above the law, that if the president in any way violated the law, did something that impugned the integrity of the office of the president, then that inquiry should take place, and we should look at it and see where it goes.
Congressman, your thoughts on the whole impeachment? What impact does it have on voters here? Any at all?
I've never seen anybody get attacked the way President Trump has. From the night he got elected back in November of 2016, it has not let up. And remember, every issue was going to be, this is the one that's going to take down President Trump, and they continued on. The Mueller report was weak as could be, and there wasn't anything there. They've been doing these pre-impeachment inquiry hearings behind closed doors with no way for the public to know what's going on. And this week, they voted for an impeachment inquiry. That just means to proceed. It's not the same as an impeachment. And at the end of the day, there's nothing here. This is just a continued attack on the president. And I think what it will do is it will motivate those that are Trump voters to see that this has been something that's just been out of hand, that's being done in Washington, D.C. to attack the president.
Well, if it is something that is out of hand, then it'll show itself. But in the meantime, nobody can argue with the fact that the Democrats are following the procedures, following the rules, going through the process as was done during President Clinton's impeachment and has been done before. There's no difference. Everything has been transparent and been clear. If there's nothing there, we'll find out if there's nothing there. But there's nothing wrong with looking at something when you have a veteran, a patriot, a Purple Heart veteran that testifies before Congress that this is what happened. You can't impugn the reputation of a man who served and put his life on the line for this country and said this is what happened. So I think we have to take these things seriously. And if it turns out that is nothing, then we'll find out it's nothing. But that doesn't mean it shouldn't be investigated.
Well, no, that's fine. That's fine. And I think the light on anything is not a bad thing at all.
Yeah, I know.
But to say that this is being done the same way that it was done with President Clinton, with President Nixon, those same rules have not been in place and have not been followed. So the due process argument is there for this president. And so I don't see that. It's not being done.
I would differ with you on that.
Well, we will respectfully disagree on
absolutely.
that. How about that, Representative Johnson?
That's a good debate right there.
Thank you. Yeah.
Let's move on to the state legislature here.
Yes.
After Tuesday, what do you think the makeup of the legislature will be with all some of the open seats that we've had come Tuesday? How's it going to look?
Can I let Representative Harper?
Well, look, you know, I know you're going to win.
Yeah.
So I think at this point in time, I don't know that you'll see a significant change one way or the other. There's some. Most of those seats are not truly opposed. You know, they're not really in play, and so I don't see a significant change.
Well, I would differ with that. There are we don't. Being realistic, we don't think that we'll take over the House of Representatives, but we think there are seats that are in play. And at the very least, we're hopeful that there will change the numbers in the House of Representatives. We're 74-44 right now. We hope that we at least get rid of the supermajority and be able to create more of a balance in the legislature. But I think people will be surprised. There are a lot of seats that are in question. There are Republicans who got beat in their own primary. I mean, strong Republicans that we thought that we were surprised about. I think, and I don't think that necessarily has anything to do with conservative or Democrat. I think people sometimes in elections just won't change.
Let's say Jim Hood wins enough votes but doesn't win enough of the districts, and it goes to the representatives. How does that play out? Explain that scenario.
You know, that was certainly a concern back in the election with Musgrove and you know, the previous election there that we had with Mike Parker. There was some question, but it didn't go there. I don't anticipate that would happen, but at the end of the day, we'll see how it plays out.
I have faith in the House of Representatives. I think if no matter who wins, whoever gets the popular vote, I think that the House of Representatives will honor the popular vote, the will of the people of the state of Mississippi.
Well, I certainly do believe that Tate Reeves will prevail with the most votes and be elected next governor.
This has been a lively discussion.
Yeah, it's been great.
So it's going to be fun on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So stay tuned, and everybody should go get out there and vote on Tuesday.
Right.
Polls open from 7 to 7 p.m. as well. Thank you all for joining us here on Insight.
Thank
all
you.
right.
Great to be with you.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back. We have been profiling some of the other state races aside from the governors. Tonight, 12 News' Gerald Harris talks with the two men running for Secretary of State. Some of the other state races aside from the governors. Tonight, 12 News' Gerald Harris talks with the two men running for Secretary of State, Republican Michael Watson and Democrat Johnny Dupree.
Thanks, Byron. I'm joined by Mayor Johnny Dupree, former mayor of Hattiesburg. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Joe.
You ran in 2001 for governor as a Democratic nominee. Now you're turning your attention back to state government, this time running for Secretary of State. Explain to the voters why you decided to take on this task.
Well, first of all, Gerald, it was 2011. I was elected mayor in 2001 in Hattiesburg and served for 16 years there. Last 2 years I've been basically retired. I started teaching at the University of Southern Mississippi. Taught some brilliant students, but I found out that they weren't engaged, civically engaged. And then we had a couple of elections in the city. And we had 9% in one and less than 20% in another. And I realized at that point, after I did some other research, that number is continually going down. The founding fathers created the Constitution and under the auspices of us being a republic, not a monarchy. And we're slowly becoming not a monarchy, but where a small group of people are determining the fate of 100% of us. First of all, you got to increase confidence in voting. I think going back to paper ballots, 75% of the U.S. states, of the 50 states, have gone back to paper ballots. What does that do? I mean, you have a post-audit for the election, so people it increases their confidence that their vote that they cast is actually the vote that their candidate received. Madison County has gone back to paper ballots. Panola County, you got a pretty rich county and one that's not so rich going back. 16 counties have gone back to paper ballots. I think you need to do that. I think we need to ask our young people, what does it take? Why won't you vote? I received a letter from a student at Mississippi State. She said she registered 349 people, and she could have doubled that if we just had registration online. How easy is that? We should have open primaries. We should have it where everybody's on one ballot. You get the chance to vote for. It doesn't matter what party you're in. You get to vote for everybody at one time. We have too many elections. We have an election this year, and we have a election next year. If we were to move our elections to next year, we would save in Forest County $500,000. What I propose is a 2 weeks early voting period. It's called a no excuse early voting period, where you can actually go in because I'm a citizen, because I reside here, I ought to have the right to go and vote. On 16 section land and title land, you talked about that a little bit. I served on the school board, so I know a little bit about 16 section land. And there's a vacant land all across Mississippi that could be leased, and that money goes back to the school systems. As a real estate broker, I know what brokers do. I know what realtors do. Realtors can market. They can look and see what the highest and best use is. They can lease it. They can do those things instead of that land sitting vacant, because teachers and administrators are actually doing that program. But they didn't go to school to be a realtor. They went to school to be teachers and went to school to be administrators.
You have 30 seconds to talk to the voters out there. What do you want them to know about you as a candidate and your policies and moving forward, the Secretary of State's office under your watch?
Well, I mean, I would tell them out there again that I've got 31 years of experience. I have 16 years as being the longest serving mayor of Hattiesburg. I would like to say we put a team together in Hattiesburg that changed the culture of Hattiesburg. We have more doctors per capita in Hattiesburg than anybody else. We were named the most livable city by the U.S. Conference of Mayors twice. We created more jobs in the last 2 years I was mayor than any other city in the state. Those are the kind of things we'd like to do, is solve the problems that we have. You know, we went through Katrina, downturn of the economy, where other cities and counties were laying off people in 2009. We didn't lay off anybody. We didn't furlough anybody. We solve problems, and that's what I want to do in the Secretary of State's office. Now, I'm not saying that that's not a bad job that the current one has done. He's done a good job in there. But I am focused on increasing voter participation, voter access, and increasing your good thoughts about the process, your confidence in the process.
Former Hattiesburg Mayor Johnny Dupree taking on Senator Michael Watson November 5th. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Away from the election November 5th, and I'm joined by Senator Michael Watson, who will be taking on former Mayor of Hattiesburg Johnny Dupree. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about the very important job of Secretary of State. Talk to voters a second about why you decided to jump out of the legislature and go and run for Secretary of State.
Sure. You know, it's about 3 years ago now. Governor Bryant and I sat down, and he was coming to his second term, so he'd be leaving office, and kind of one of those conversations of, look, what do you think you're going to do? And I'd really kind of decided going into the legislature, 2 terms, maybe 3 is plenty, and then I can go home and be a dad and be a lawyer and you know, do those things, be a husband and be just fine. I don't have to have the legislature. And he said, well, you know, have you ever thought about being Secretary of State? I said, no, sir, I haven't. Never thought about it. Never wanted to be Secretary of State. And he said, well, look, you're an attorney. You're a small business owner. You've done election law and other issues under the umbrella of the office while you've been in the legislature. I think you'd make a great Secretary of State. You should think about it. And so I remember kind of walking out of the office and thought, man, you know, that was fun to have the governor suggest that, but you know, I'm not going to think much more about that. And it was one of those ideas, Joe, that you kind of walk away and it never leaves your head. And so you got to realize, well, I need to pray about this. Maybe this is something I need to consider seriously. And so we did, and got a good piece about it, and felt like we were prepared to handle the office and the duties that come with the office. So we launched our campaign about a little over a year ago, and here we are.
Talk to us about how we can increase our voter participation here in Mississippi, because we're lagging behind a whole lot.
Sure. You know, we've talked about a lot of issues, how to get that started, but I think the base issue and where it starts is there's a program now called Promote the Vote that's in the Secretary of State's office, and basically what that is going to the schools and teaching our young people the importance of civic duty and the importance of voting, being you know, engaged in the election process, and making sure they understand, hey, here are the decisions that you're going to make going forward in the future. And part of that is deciding whether or not to vote. And if you do vote, you have a voice in the process and the leadership of the state and how important that is.
And what key tenet that you've had since the primary and now is the DMV and moving it under the umbrella of the Secretary of State. Talk to the voters about why you think that's the best idea.
Yeah, so really over the last 5 or 6 years, the main complaint that I've been receiving in the legislature from voters is, look, we're having an awful time at the DMV trying to get our license. I was in Olive Branch recently and talking to folks that were getting their license there, and the average wait time was 4 to 6 hours. So we've decided, look, it's an administrative function, basically, more clerical and administrative than anything else. So if you move that to the Secretary of State's office with the business services that we already have, the automation that Secretary Husband has brought to office, applying that to the DMV, and then if you look at right now, there's 30 to 40 troopers, highway patrolmen that are in driver services that you could put back on the road. It's almost a new trooper class, putting them back on the road. So they get to do their core function of protecting Mississippians, and that's an important piece. And so we've taken this apart and we've put our plan together. It's called the SIP plan, Service, Information, and Professionalism, which is on our website, michaelwatson.ms. And we've projected this and said, look, here are the issues. Here's how we can fix them. We're going to put this together, and coming in January, you're going to see legislation introduced to move the DMV over to the Secretary of State's office should we be elected.
All right, and I'm going to give you 30 seconds just to have that conversation with the voters right here and tell them why they should cast your vote, vote for you.
Absolutely. So thank y'all for tuning in, and thank you for listening. I am excited about running for this office. I think it's an important office for Mississippi. You talk about elections, you talk about business services, you talk about public lands. It's an office that impacts your lives every day, basically, whether you know it or not. So it's important that we have a conservative in that office, someone that's going to streamline government, someone that's going to cut regulations where possible, and someone that's going to protect the integrity of the vote. I think that's very important. So looking forward to serving as your next Secretary of State. I would love to have your vote on November 6th, excuse me, coming November 5th on Tuesday. So get out to the polls and appreciate your support.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Republican Senator Michael Watson taking on former Mayor of Hattiesburg, Johnny Dupree.
Thanks to former Congressman Gregg Harper, Representative Robert Johnson, Johnny Dupree, and Michael Watson. A reminder, 12 News is your local election headquarters. Join us Tuesday night for complete election coverage. For Gerald Harris, I'm Byron Brown. Make it a good night.